everyone. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime news hour on Equinoxe Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Bable Jonathan. In our top stories in this edition of the news, we begin with this information in which the national president of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement CRM political party, Professor Maurice Kamto, is mounting pressure on the Cameroon government to decongest prisons in the country. He says overcrowded prisons are fatal grounds for the spread of coronavirus, and this is coming days after detained former general manager of the Cameroon Radio Television sent a distress call from his Kondengui maximum security prison, expressing dangers around him and saying that he was at risk of contracting the coronavirus after 2 of his cellmates tested positive for coronavirus. The international rights group Human Rights Watch, in its latest report, says that Boko Haram militant group is waging war on civilians in the far north region of Cameroon at a shocking human cost, and out of the country, ethnic or tribal clashes lead to the death of at least 18 people in the Darfur region of Sudan. Those were top stories. Thanks for joining us. We begin this newscast with Professor Maurice Kamto, National President of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement CRM political party, who is raising an alarm over the overcrowded nature of detention centers in the Republic of Cameroon. He's mounting pressure on the government and, of course, the President of the Republic, Paul Biya, to decongest the overcrowded prisons. He thinks that the overcrowded prisons are fatal grounds for the spread of coronavirus, and this is coming after detained former general manager of the Cameroon Radio Television, Amadou Vamuke, sent distress calls from his cell in the Kondengui maximum prison in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, expressing fears that he may be contracting coronavirus anytime soon after some of his cellmates tested positive for coronavirus. For me, I'm Strong Sander.
Maurice Kamto raises an alarm that the coronavirus is ravaging prisons and prisoners in Cameroon, and what should be expected if prisons are not decongested. In a Facebook release on the urgency to decongest prisons for what he says are humanitarian reasons in the context of the new wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, Maurice Kamto recalled that 700 prisoners already tested positive with COVID-19 in 21 out of 70 prisons in Cameroon before March the 25th, 2021, according to a study carried out by the government of Cameroon. A disturbing rate of contaminations which to him is favored by the overcrowded nature of prisons in Cameroon, accompanied by promiscuity and total incompatibility to basic hygienic rules. The situation, he says, favors the accumulation and combination of objective factors of transmission of the coronavirus pandemic. Maurice Kamto notes that the study was carried out in less than half of the country's prisons. The presented figures far below reality and, above all, outdated today. Knowing that the current wave of COVID-19 is more virulent than the previous one, Maurice Kamto fears what might be the recent statistics in prisons in the country and frowns at the fact that no updated statistics on deaths and infections in prisons are being made public to Cameroonians. In view of the anticipated humanitarian release seen as vital to preserve and save the lives of Cameroonians, especially prisoners, Maurice Kamto says governments should decongest prisons by releasing prisoners of minor offenses, pregnant women, people on overdue waiting trial, prisoners of the Anglophone crisis, journalists, whistleblowers and CRM party sympathizers and supporters, prisoners with comorbidity, and more generally, prisoners of conscience. The CRM national president Maurice Kamto says failure to take these measures, which are seriously relevant for the current situation in Cameroon, is tantamount to consciously allowing a disturbing spread of COVID-19 among prisoners, in Cameroon.
Professor Maurice Kamto adding his voice to mount pressure on the government of the Republic of Cameroon for overcrowded prisons to be decongested. In the meantime, opposition politicians are also mounting a pressure for the revision of the country's electoral code, and the CPDM thinks that it is a known event that opposition political parties came together for this purpose. He thinks notably the communication secretary of the party, Minister of Higher Education, Professor Jacques Famendongo, thinks that there is time for this. And this point of view was backed by CPDM militant who was speaking on the response on Equinoxe Television yesterday. Innocent as he has more.
The National Secretary of Communication, Professor Jacques Famendongo, said the come together of the opposition class and its technical secretariat in Yaoundé on April 1st to propose reforms to the electoral code and known events. Backing up these statements on droit de réponse on Équinoxe Television is CPDM militant Joseph René Mboutouze.
Je dis simplement qu'elle ne cadre pas avec le temps pour le moment.
He says the meeting to propose the electoral code reforms simply does not match with the present situation because the head of state and his members of government are preoccupied with battling major challenges like the COVID-19 pandemic, strive to revamp the crippling economy so as to cater for the Cameroonians.
Le rôle de l'État, c'est de donner le bien-être aux citoyens.
Also that next elections are due to hold in 4 years' time. Thus, no need rushing by the idle opposition political parties, he says.
Elle est préoccupée les 4 ans là à parler des questions électorales, mais ils ne sont pas obligés d'entraîner le gouvernement là-dedans.
He admits revision of the electoral code is imperative, but regrets
Ça reste un problème majeur.
it is impossible now, as burning issues must be resolved first. If not, the opposition leaders are only wasting their time.
Détourner l'attention du gouvernement.
The CPDM militant goes further to suggest opposition leaders wait until ELECAM, that is already working on the reforms, publishes its proposed reforms.
A commencé lui en tant qu'organe en charge des élections.
If not contented, it is here they can start meeting to suggest their reforms to better the electoral code.
Dans la
Watch in its latest report says that the Boko Haram terrorist group is waging war on civilians in the far north region of the Republic of Cameroon at a shocking human cost. The report of Human Rights Watch simply contradicts that of Cameroon's Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Tanganji, who said the security situation in the far north region is under control and that Boko Haram is living its last days. According to the Human Rights Watch latest report, 80 civilians have been killed between December 2020 and March 2021, with the deadliest attack taking place in Mosogo on January 8. In that attack, at least 14 civilians, including 8 children, were killed. The same report equally denounces military excesses, citing the arrest of 4 fishermen in the Dabanga locality while they were in the custody. They were tortured, leading to the death of one of them. This information reviewed by Human Rights Watch in its latest report on the Boko Haram conflict or crisis in the far north region of the Republic of Cameroon. And in a similar story, violence in Cameroon's Anglophone crisis takes a high civilian toll. Experts warn that the country is on the verge of backsliding to a fragile status as conflicts between Anglophone separatists and government forces, increasingly affecting civilians. And recent reports indicate that more than 700,000 people have been displaced internally, and 68,800 others have been forced across the border into neighboring Nigeria. Overall, the United Nations estimate that 3 million of the 4 million people in Cameroon's northwest and southwest regions have been affected by the more than 4-year-long armed conflict going on there. Now, this sad news: the Lamido of Garwa and Secretary of State at the Ministry of Public Health in charge of epidemics and pandemics is no more. He died earlier today following ill health. Alim Ayatu served as Secretary of State to the Minister of Public Health for more than 20 years. The member of government also served as the Lamido of Garwa in the North region since the year 2000. He was mostly seen in these last months in his moves in the fight against coronavirus, and he was also president of the Council of Traditional Rulers of Cameroon. Cameroon's former Prime Minister Alim Ayatu died at the age of 77. Now take a listen to Bashiru Wali, representative of the Lamido, and Jamal Abdul, who is a third-class chief in that part of the country. Take a listen.
1 week before he's sick, but yesterday he's very sick. But today, around this time, now they call us and tell us he's died. It's normal about that. They're fearing the sickness or the death. We can't avoid it. But he's man of heart. We is a man. I don't know how to express it, but for me especially, we have I don't know how to say, but he's a man of heart. But we pray God Almighty to leave his soul in peace.
It is very sad to talk about him. For me, he was a father, first of all. He was a father, and as his chiefdom, he was the man who trained me in the traditional issues. Today, he is no longer with us, and I keep as I said, it's not easy to talk about a man who is no longer with us today, to whom I was close to. He was a great man, as I said. He was a father for me. And he is the man who trained me about all the traditional issues that I have today. And today I can say that I'm ready for any issue for the third-class chiefdom in this area by his help. That all I can remember about him. He was a great man. He was a great man.
Those were some reactions from Garwa after the death of Alim Ayatu Lamido of Garwa, and he died as Secretary of State at the Ministry of Public Health in charge of epidemics and pandemics. Now, news out of Cameroon. In Sudan, a local doctors committee said earlier today that tribal clashes in the Darfur region have killed at least 18 people and wounded 54 others. The West Darfur Doctors Committee said in a statement that the 54 wounded victims are receiving medical care at the Al Jenia Medical Center or Teaching Hospital following the clashes on the Saturday and Sunday. According to the United Nations organization, the West Darfur region was the scene of a bitter conflict that erupted in 2003, leaving about 300,000 people killed and 2.5 million people displaced. The conflict has subsided over the years, but ethnic and tribal clashes still periodically flare in the region over land and access to water. The clashes often pit nomadic Arab pastoralists against settled farmers and non-Arab ethnic groups and more than 200 people were killed in tribal clashes in January in some of the worst bloodshed the region has witnessed in years. The military in Mozambique says it has regained control of the coastal town of Palma more than a week after it was raided by militant Islamists. An army spokesperson said a significant number of militants were killed in the counter-offensive. Dozens of civilians were killed and at least 11,000 displaced after the militants invaded Palma March 24, 2021. A South African and British national were among the killed in what was one giant and also forced Giant Total to suspend its multi-billion-dollar natural gas project in Fungi, a short distance from the town, and several persons have been affected by the attacks, including 75,000 others who have been left in very difficult conditions as a result of that situation there. Talking Point is up next. Thank you for staying with us in Talking Points today. We are receiving Dr. Nick Ngoyam, an educationist. Doctor, you're welcome.
Thank you. Good evening to our listeners.
And to my left, Barrister Kamwa Limen, head of the Kamwa Limen Law Firm here in Cameroon's economic capital, member of the Cameroon Bar Association. Thank you for joining us, Barrister.
It's always a pleasure.
All right, I begin with you. The latest report of Human Rights Watch is a sharp contrast of that of the Minister of Territorial Administration, Atanganji Paul, on the situation in the far north region of the country. The International Rights Organization indicates that there is a war with a shocking human cost going on there, waged by Boko Haram on civilians.
Yes, you see, I'm not very surprised that their report is contradictory to what the minister said, because, you know, the minister has his role as a political agent of the government to say things in favor of the government, and I think the report, which is credible, is that of the people who actually move to those areas to do kind of research and come up with those statistics. I think the results, we all know for sure that Boko Haram is still very, very strong in the north, and you see, everybody has been praying that the government should take the necessary steps, though it's an international crisis because it's transborder, and the situation is a bit more complicated, but we think that with the help of the local population, they can contain the acts of Boko Haram.
Dr. Nick Ngoyam, in your opinion, what is causing this war to persist with such a shocking human cost highlighted by Human Rights Watch?
You see, when you see violence in any situation, you have to just leave it as it is and go to the background and find out what is the fertilizer that is making the thing to go on. And if you don't deal with the fertilizing circumstances, you always have trouble. And I have a long explanation to that, because I thought about what should be going on since 2016, and it became very clear to me that as long as you have a population that is destitute, as long as you have neglected a population, and as long as you have youths that are not well catered for, as long as you have youths who are not sure of bread the next day, and people, if you've seen the state of the classrooms up in the north, you've seen what the women are going through to have water, you see what they go through, and you know their pockets are empty, you would have Boko Haram. I mean, you can explain Boko Haram, you can explain Couper de Route, and you can explain all other violences, because all these ideologies and difficulties come and find a fertile ground on which they thrive. So you can say anything from morning till evening, but if you're not doing the right thing to address the conditions of people on the ground, it will take a long time.
Poverty and hardship.
That's correct.
Now, Barrister Kamwa indicated that Minister Atanganji is in his role as a government authority to say that things are under control. But why should the government say that things are under control when the Human Rights Watch and information from the ground are indicating that there is a shocking human cost?
Well,
casualties being recorded?
I'm not impressed by that, and I couldn't care about that because I have not gone to the north to see it for myself, but I come from the northwest, and I come from West Cameroon, and I know that those ministers, when they're going around there, they go in armored cars, and then they turn around and tell us that it's okay in the northwest. And I've been saying that if you want to say that everything is okay in the northwest, you can go for elections, children can go to school freely and all whatnot. The road between Kumbu and Kambe is open. You demonstrate that. You see, if let's say the minister Atanganji could take his 4x4 car and ride in it with his single bodyguard and his driver and do the trip from Kambe down to Limbe and go back without that military escort and so on, that is an indication that everything is okay. But if you are going to have, because I saw some videos, I think it was on social media, some of the ministers were going down to, I think it's Manfe, to do some reorganization of the CPD and whatever, and they were traveling in armored cars. That is not it. That was the first time if you are traveling in an armored car or you have military escort, it means nothing is working.
People are dying.
Correct.
And the situation is under control.
Which situation? Which of the situations? Because apparently nothing is under control. Even our economy is not under control. Nothing in Cameroon is under control. You cannot say that the situation in the north is under control when we have credible institutions telling us that people are dying. You see, and when I said that the minister was in his role, it's not that I appreciate what he's doing. No, I'm just saying that they are used to sending out information which is good for them, for their image. You see, but when you have international organizations coming in to tell us that the situation is alarming, we believe it. We believe them. And Mr. Babila, there is no proof to ascertain the fact that the situation is under control. We find people dying. We find the military
80 dying. Civilians killed between December 2020 and March 2021. It is
very sad. It is a very sad record. And you see, what is worrisome about Boko Haram attack is that it is a transnational terrorism. It's transnational terrorism. It means that it is carried out in many other countries. And so we need the
Nigeria, Chad,
Nigeria, Chad, and you see, it needs a concerted action from those governments to put it under control.
That's why the multinational task force.
Yes, I think we need such a multinational task group to fight Boko Haram.
Right, and in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, recent reports also indicate that there is violence continuing there with high civilian toll that is being recorded with recent attacks on schools, explosions here and there going on. And experts are now warning that the country is at the verge of backsliding into a fragile status.
Mr. Babila, you see, each time we talk about the Northwest and Southwest, I really speak with a lot of regret and a lot of emotion, because what is happening in Northwest and Southwest were things that could be prevented. You see, still we were not honest, the administration was not honest enough to discover that these people had their grievances was actually founded. And so they kept saying there was no problem, and today we have a very, very fragile society in the Northwest and Southwest. Mr. Babila, if you don't use the right solutions to solve the problem, you will not solve the problem. And to the best of my knowledge, the efforts the government is putting is not adequate, or is not appropriate to stop the Anglophone crisis.
Dr. Nick, what do you think about this warning that the Northwest and the Southwest regions are quickly moving towards getting into a status of a fragile state?
It's just basic common sense. It's basic common sense. You set a fire to a forest, and if you do nothing about it, it continues to burn and gets worse. And
but you will not say that government has done nothing about it.
Wait a minute. The adage says that a stitch in time saves 9. And then when the major national dialogue came up, everybody was kind of like convinced that at last we were having a solution. But when we went to that major national dialogue, we didn't go there with an open heart, we didn't go there with truth, we didn't go there with love, so it didn't work. And today we are saying that the major national dialogue has failed with everything that came out of it. And that's the reason why in the days to come, we are going to have another dialogue which will be genuine, which will address root causes, and then we'll be able to look a round table conference. We'll be able to look at each other eyeball to eyeball and get this thing done with. Because if you don't do that and think that you can win it by arms, nobody's going to win that war. It can go on for 50 years, be killing over here, killing over there. You cannot be rejoicing because people are being killed. That's not it.
And one of the persons,
before you take the microphone from me, the President Paul Biya is interested in reconciliation and unity in the nation. And of course, when he says reconciliation and unity in the nation, it's a package deal. And that package deal needs to be broken up by the specialists so that we solve this problem once and for all, with the understanding that violence is getting us nowhere.
Experts in conflict resolution think that reconciliation cannot happen, cannot come without justice.
That's right. The word reconciliation and unity is the theme, is the subject of a composition. It's a subject of an essay. So you write an essay which is about reconciliation and the unity in the nation. So the experts will go in and say that for us to have this thing, we have to go through this and that. It's an issue of the specialist in that field, and everything will be looked at, no taboo.
And one of the persons who spend much of his time talking and fighting for peace and stability to return to the northwest and southwest regions of the country, but died without seeing that coming to pass, is the Archbishop Emeritus of the Douala Metropolitan Archdiocese of the Roman Catholic Church, Christian Cardinal Tumi. How did you receive that news?
That's right. It's very shocking news. It's very shocking news, but it goes to tell us that when we live as human beings, I was discussing with my brother here off camera, that those of us who are medical doctors, when you work in a hospital, you begin to see a lot of things that happen to other human beings, and if you are God fearing, those things will humble you to the extent that you will know that you are nothing. That is, you begin to have wisdom when you come to that point where you accept that you are nothing. You are Dr. Ngwanyam, and so what? I am president this, and so what? I'm minister this, and so what? To Nuriki. It's about the services that you bring to other human beings. It's about the things that you do for the good of other human beings. And everybody gets carried away in this life with empty ego, empty pride, materialism, greed, and so on. We are running after the wrong shadows. But Christian Cardinal Tumi came to teach us the right values on which we should live. And he knew that he was going to die. And I'm sure he prayed that he should die on that day. And his greatest wish before death, he would have loved to see that the Anglophone problem were solved before he dies. But don't forget, even when Jesus Christ died at the age of 33, he had not convinced all Jews that he was the Christ. So you cannot finish all the work, but the most important thing is to sow the seed and have the disciples to carry on with the job.
He died on Good Friday, the same day Jesus Christ, Savior of the world, died. I guess that's what you're referring to when you said he prayed that he should die on that day.
Well, I think he died a good death.
Right. Now, Barrister Kamwadimen, some Cameroonians received the news of the passing on to glory of Christian Cardinal Tumi with a lot of shock, but above the shock, regret. Padia Sanga, speaking to me from Germany, said it is regretful that he has gone at a time when Cameroonians, especially English-speaking Cameroonians from the northwest and southwest regions of the country, failed to listen to him and to follow him in his fight, in his struggle for peace and stability.
I think it's not the Anglophones who did not listen to him, it's the administration that did not listen to him. Because he came out with very good
somebody
ideas.
Like the mayor of Boya, the former mayor.
Yes, but he does not. He does not represent. He doesn't represent.
Who said the AGC will not take place?
No, but he does not represent the aspirations of the Anglophones. He was a mayor. He was working. He was doing his job, And there's no doubt that is from CPDM. So, but what I'm saying is that the cardinal was understood by Cameroonians. He wasn't understood, or he was even understood by a government acting in bad faith. Because all what he did was to create a forum, was to create an arena where the Anglophone problems could be discussed. And you know, as I keep saying, you cannot solve a problem without knowing, without diagnosing the problem. That would have been an opportunity for Anglophones to actually choose their leaders and identify their problems. It is from that identification of the problem that the government can identify the root causes, and then you solve them. So I think it's a great loss for Cameroon, it's a great loss for Africa, but he succeeded in doing something. He succeeded in telling us that peace is very important and that we should all work to have peace. And you see, Mr. Babila, the anarchy we have in the Northwest and Southwest is not good for anybody. Even to the government itself, it's not good. It's not a good thing. And I just keep praying that one day we'll come to the right thinking to know that we need experts to resolve the Anglophone crisis, and you need people who are honest. That it starts from there. The individuals should be very honest to accept that there is a problem, and then you trace the root causes of the problem and you solve them. I think
honesty and truth are some of the values on which Christian Cardinal Tumi continued to emphasize while he was alive, and he injected that into many people, moral rectitude. And Dr. Nick Wayam is just one of them, where his spiritual son.
Yes. I don't know if it's the time for me to say it, but he believed in me, and I believed in him. He believed in me, and I believed in him. And amongst, I would say something that will shock some people, amongst his sons, priests, bishops, and I don't know, he gave me his spirit. He gave me his spirit, and he trained me since 2000. He's been training me for a very long time, and he gave me his spirit. That kind of exchange that went between Elijah and Elisha. And therefore, it doesn't matter if I live for one day, it doesn't matter if I live for 2 days, I cannot do anything that would hurt the cardinal. That's it.
What did he give you? You talked about Elijah and Elisha, and Elisha, I remember, I received the double portion of the anointing of his master.
You see, there are so many things in life, and we sometimes don't know what is important and what is not important. What is important in life is to be able to listen to a wise man who and you ask him, what makes you wise and strong? And he says, these are the ingredients for making it. And then above all, you know, he's a man of God, and he teaches you that to have the power, to have the strength, to have the wisdom, you have to walk the walk of the Lord. You have to be in there, even as much as you are a sinner, but keep your eye on that. And he strips you of materialism. He strips you of empty ego. He strips you on everything and plants the seed of love and faith in him. And to tell you, action speaks louder than words. You know, the cardinal knew me for a very long time, but he took special interest in me in 1993, March 1993, when I was working as a surgeon in Betua, and a young man, 29 years old, called Abonolangwe Luis, was killed. And when he was killed, I was alone there, but because I trusted my God, I spoke the truth, and I said he had been killed. And from then on, he trusted me like he trusts nobody.
Right. Now, he's no more. He is moved on to eternal glory. And we are now looking at what we can pick out of the man, what he said, what he did, in order to be able to solve some of the problems that he left behind, notably the security crisis, which he fought so much to solve with the agency that never happened for some reasons. Barrister, what are some of the key values that we can pick out, that our authorities can take from the cardinal to be able to handle some of the challenges, especially the security challenges in the northwest and southwest regions of the country?
Well, I'll start by saying that when I listen to Dr. talk, and I've always followed his interviews, I see one of the type of people we need to change the system, to improve the Anglophone crisis, to bring solutions. And I'm happy that is directly linked to the Cardinal. So that said, you see that he did a lot to impact other people to follow his dream. And I think that's a legacy he leaves behind. Now, concerning what he has...
Some of the ideas.
You see, the very first is that he wants us to be honest. Honesty, humility. When you are honest and you are humble, Babila, you can solve every problem. Babila, if you hurt a man so badly and you come and kneel in front of him, let me tell you something. One of the lessons I was taught one day by Barrister Tumpo Nikohale is I went to see him in his office and I said, I have a problem with this senior colleague. He said, Liman, do you know something? He said, I don't care who is right or wrong. Go to that senior colleague. I know what he did. He came and he knelt in front of me. Nico had knelt in front of me, held my legs and said, forgive me, forgive me. Then he stood up and said, has anything changed in me? I said, no, that is what you should go and do. And I went. I went to this senior colleague, spoke to him, and as I was about to go down my knee, he said, no, you should not do that. You see, that is humility. When you humble yourself, you can solve a lot of problems. And I think people like Nico Hale equally has been impacted by what Cardinal has been doing. And those are the forebearers. Those are the people that we should look up to, you understand, to create a meaningful platform to resolve the Anglophone crisis.
Right.
So, Doctor, to be very honest with you, I'm honored and privileged to be here with you. And I tell you honestly that I follow your interviews and I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
In one of the editions of The Inside, the Christian Cardinal said to me that the authorities of this country, including the President of the Republic, should step down from their high horse and go down there and solve the problem in the northwest and southwest regions. 2 seconds.
Yes, let me just say that the Cardinal was trying to have this Anglophone General Conference, and you heard what late Ekema said, and we should say it bold and clearly that Ekema was that toad that was dancing on the road, but the drummer was in the bush. That said, even though the AGC didn't work, even though the major dialogue did not work, the Cardinal, before his death, he has been doing a lot of work in the background with the presidency to see that this problem is solved. Even though he was never received, just like the bishops of the Bamenda. No, that's for public consumption. But in the last days, you don't know what has been going on there. Let's leave that too. Right, okay. Dr. Nick Ngoyam, Barrister Kamwalime, thank you for joining me today. Thank you.
It was a pleasure, Mr. Babila.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. Equinoxe is up next.